is Harriet Rosenzweig Frankel. I was born October 29th, 1916 in Chicago, Illinois, in the Cook County Hospital. My husband was Norman Frankel, and he was born in Brooklyn. He's 8 years older than I am. He's been dead 15 years. I've been a widow all that time. I had 3 children, but I only have one surviving one. My surviving daughter is Ellen Matson, lives in New York. And I have a granddaughter up there who's going to Barnard College on a scholarship. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. My father was a traveling man. My father was came from Kiev, Russia. I'm first generation on his side. And on my mother's side, I'm 3rd generation. So, I grew up in Indianapolis. In Indianapolis, I went to public school, and my high school was Shortridge High School. And when I went back there, when I started Shortridge High School, it was segregated, of course, and it was brand new. And I went back a few years ago to see Shortridge, and I couldn't believe what it looked like, or what the city looked like. I am not a college graduate. That time of life, they didn't send girls to college. I was very lucky that my mother thought I was talented. And I studied piano, and studied dancing, and I studied art. At Indianapolis, I had a Saturday scholarship to the John Herron Art Institute. And I went every Saturday to art. Am I talking too loud?
A little bit.
Because I'm deaf, I can't tell the volume. I try to keep it down. So I have attended a number of courses as an adult and taken courses. In fact, I'm a junior at Georgia State. But when I took the test to get in there, I was in the bottom 10% as far as math is concerned. Everything else I passed. I was living in Atlanta. You want the address where the house? I think I was living on, I'm not sure of what date I moved to West Wesley. I started out on Greenwood Avenue, which is in Midtown. I'm not sure. I can't really remember that. I remember being in the car when they announced Pearl Harbor. But I don't remember. It must have, maybe by that time I was living on West Wesley. I was married. I had always been a volunteer in various things. I had done things helping. I can't remember all the different things that I did, but when my friends' husbands started being drafted and all of that, we wanted to say, I felt that I ought to be going too. My father having been foreign born, I was very grateful for being an American. And so, I had never gone to college, and the Waves were making recruits. And if you got into the Waves, you got a college education. So I went down to apply melody and the waves. Well, I've always been hearing impaired. I wasn't deaf, but I was hearing impaired. So I go into the interview to join the waves, and there was a big, hefty woman who was, "Oh, you're an artist. I want you. You'll be fine." And I said, "Well, I'm hard of hearing. I just want you to know. I want you to know that." And she says, "Oh, that's nothing. We'll take care of it." And they put me in the room with my face to the wall and whispered numbers. And of course, I didn't hear them. I flunked out and I couldn't be a wave. So after that, I said, well, in high school, I had studied meteorology. I'll go see if I can be a meteorologist. Well, I took the test and I had to wait for it. In the meantime, I guess what really started this, I have to back up, is my husband had polio as a child, and he came in 4F, so I had to be the one to do the patriotic thing. So that's why I did it. So then I saw something in the newspaper about Georgia Tech offering courses in drafting if you would take a war job. As I told you, I was an artist, and I had commercial artist, not a fine artist, commercial, to make money. Okay. So I said, well, if I can already draw, I'll try drafting. Well, I got accepted for the course at Georgia Tech. I was at Georgia Tech before they allowed women. I do not remember how many women were in the class, but there were very few. I don't remember but one other woman besides myself. I took the course and I passed it. So it was going to be for a job at the bomber plant. I took sheet metal drafting. So when I went out and at that time you had to apply. Bell Bomber had an employee place on Old Marietta Street. It was in town where we were, and I did an interview. And they said I had to make a drawing of some kind to show that I could draw. And am I boring you? Okay. Well, what am I going to draw that's sort of mechanical? And so, if you remember the old meat grinders that people did by hand, you push the meat down and you grind. I drew a picture of a meat grinder. I don't think they even make them anymore. I do that, and then they asked me if I could follow a pattern if I sewed. And back when I went to high school, the boys took shop and the girls took domestic art. So I had sewing and I had cooking. In fact, I can remember that they taught us how to make mayonnaise. I'm really old. But anyway, I passed all of it. And then I got a job as a production illustrator at the Bell Bomber plant in Marietta. And I do not recall how they set it up for me to get a carpool. But Highway 41 had just been built, and I was in a carpool that took me out there. I worked 6 days a week, 9 hours a day. And the job was very, very interesting. Well, after they hired the people, And in Georgia at that time, there were not many people who knew how to read blueprints. And they were mostly farmers down here. They were not industrial. And so when they found somebody who knew technical stuff, they hired them before the plant was built. And they hid all of the people down in the basement of the bomber plant until it was ready for them to go. And so I went, I don't know how long I went, and we sort of studied in orientation down in the basement of the bomber plant. And when it was ready to go, I found out I was in the engineering department. Very impressed by it. And I was the second woman out there in the engineering department Our job was to blow up drawings in perspective. Because the workers, the real Rosies, could not read blueprints. And so we made drawings from the blueprints in perspective to show how to put it together and put the bolts together. So I learned I had to draw things that weren't in what they would look like after they were built. And the only other woman in the department was an architect. And there were a lot of men, artists there, who were draft age. And it was better to work at a bomber plant than it was to be drafted. So the men artists had learned the drafting also, sheet metal. And so I worked there. We had a long walk. I can remember we had a long walk from where we went in through a turnstile to get to our desk. And I made friends with the people. And I worked on the dihedral angle of the bomber plant because of the build B-29. They were adding more gasoline storage to make the flight overseas. And so that was what we were doing. I worked on that part and drew the parts and what the jigs and the dollies would look like. So these are exploded drawings. You know, number one, you put this one there. Number two, you put this one there. And I worked there, and then I became pregnant. And I worked there until I couldn't get through the turnstiles. And so I had my first child, a son. And as time went on, they closed down the bomber plant. They closed down Bell. And after they did that, then I began to itch to go back to work. And Lockheed was opened up. And I said, well, I'm going to go down and say, here I am, I'm a production illustrator. I want to go back to work. And I went into the employment officer. And I said, I'm a production illustrator. I worked during the war at Bell Bomber Plant. And the man said to me, I'm sorry, the war is over. We're not holding women. That's a true story. I didn't make that up. And from there, because of all that I had learned about perspective drawing and doing that, I got a job as a furniture illustrator. I have some pictures of it. The man at the bomber plant, this is from the aluminum from the wing. did it for me. I was very popular.
Want me to hold it up to the camera? Okay.
What do you want me?
Did you want to get something else?
I guess the thing I remember the most is that man Lockheed telling me they weren't hiring women that the war was over. But, I mean, there was nothing special at the bomber plant. I just worked there. I went there every day. Memorable thing is I made more money at that time than my husband did.
Thank you.
We are recording.
Well, I've always done various kinds of social work, volunteer work, and I think because of all the volunteer work, I expanded my horizon, and I think that everybody ought to try to get out of their own little clique and go and have all these other experiences so that you understand the world more. So I drew pictures of veterans in the hospitals. As I said, I worked, because I was an artist, I worked in the Fulton Bag and Cotton Mills, drawing feed bags and flour bags. And I never made mill hands before, but I became a lint head. At that time, in the cotton mills, I made $15 a week.
What year?
I wasn't married, so that had to be 1938 to 39 that I worked in the cotton mills. I worked in the candy factory in Chicago. I saved the money from them and went to art school in Chicago. And I worked in a candy factory where I designed wrappers for candy. But after the job at the Bell Bomber plant, I worked in this furniture factory, retail furniture.
I'll hold them up. I think it'll be easier.
This is what I look. That's not bad for 90 years old.
Okay.
I think this was early in my marriage.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Very attractive. Okay. Got this. Okay.
Mrs. Frankel, please tell us who these are.
Who are they?
My mother and my sister.
Your mother?
My mother and me and my sister.
Okay. Mother, her, sister.
Okay.
Okay. Are these the illustrations of the furniture?
This is from the furniture place. I was in charge of doing all these brochures.
I'll just turn through them when you're ready.
Let's just do that one page and
Okay.
I'll make copies.
I didn't do all of the drawing. I was in charge of the art department. Some of these drawings are mine and some are...
Nice.
Okay.
I was with the Atlanta Clean City Commission.
Okay. There she is.
I've done a lot of things.
Yes, you have. Is that all in there?
Great. That's very good.
I just thought you might be interested in.
Very interested. That's truly excellent.
I was the artist. Atlanta Trade Center is out on...
Okay.
It's non-existent now. That's by near Six Flags.
Okay. Okay.
Excellent. Please tell us a little about Cabbage Town.
Well, I don't remember anything particularly about Cabbage Town except the fact that it was there. But they had a store there to take care of everybody. And Clarence Elsis took an interest with me, and he was in charge of the store. And he asked me to go and help him build up the windows, do the window decorating for the store in Cabbage Town. But I didn't go there, but the Fulton Bag and Cotton Mills had a health department. They had a nurse, and they offered free scarlet fever shots. And I went and got my scarlet fever shot, and they said it was for all your family. And I recommended it. I said, well, I got my sister. I'm going to bring her down here and get her vaccinated. And her vaccinated was terrible. She couldn't ever forgive me for it. But I was paid on the office force for Fulton Bag at that time, the Elsis family. I'm Jewish, and they were members of my synagogue, so I knew these people. But I worked in the office, in the factory, my place. So sometimes there were holidays or days off when they closed the office, but they didn't close the factory. But they wouldn't let me stay in my office there because the rats were so bad that I couldn't be in there by myself. And in the Fulton Bag and Cotton Mills. No, that's another place. No, that's the story about the Fulton Bag and Cotton Mills. I went back to see the place where I actually was located and saw where the condo was, but it was right on the entrance there, and it's still, I could see the glass, everything, to go in there. I worked there. It had to be the late 39s because I wasn't married then. I got married in 1940. I was married for 53 years.
That's about the drawing for the veterans. Okay. How much time is it? Oh, okay.
Well, the veterans wanted to have the artists come in and draw their pictures. And most memorable time was that I went in to draw one of the veterans, and he had an eye out. And I said, how can I draw his picture and give it to him? So I said, I'll do a profile. So I did a profile of him. And then inside, so you couldn't see how he had been. And then the veterans, they had the program then that they could make copies of the drawings and send pictures, photographs to their families. So I did that for the Jewish welfare thing.
Okay.
My whole life, up till the last few years, was really centered on being a commercial artist. But now I've been a writer, an editor. I was 5 years the editor of Midtown Story. And they just gave me a tree planted at Grady High School in my name.
Very good.
I really sound like I'm very conceited. I'm not. But I'm just proud of, I mean, like I say, I'm not a college graduate. I had my own business.
I'm going to ask her a question about family in Europe.
Why don't you say your question out loud
Okay.
right now?
Were any of your family members caught in the war in Europe or Eastern?
Did my family members go to the war?
Were any in Europe when your father came to the United States? Were any of his family members?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay.
Tony is going to ask, and you finish writing, and then please give Mrs.
My
Frankel a
hearing
question.
have to carry.
Right. Tony's going to give you a question. Tony is going to ask Mrs. Frankel about her family members in the war, rather in Europe during the time of the war.
Well, they all got out.
Good. Good.
They all got out.
They came in 1914, I think.
Okay.
My father's family. My mother's family had been here.
Okay.
In fact, it was funny, they were so opposite. Because my mother's family, German and English, my uncle had a cotton gin in Athens, Alabama. And my grandfather had a store in Decatur, Alabama. And my father was a traveling man and came into the store. And he fell in love with my mother. And she was not allowed to go with anybody who was not Jewish. And there weren't any Jewish people in the town. There were 10 families and no Jewish men.
I'd like to ask if Mrs. Frankel remembers the cotton gin in Alabama, because
I didn't go see it. I remember a lot of things about Decatur, Alabama, because we spent our summers there with my grandmother. At that time, I mean, I got lots of funny stories about that. I don't have anything to do with Rosie, except people are just interested. But at that time, if you walked down the street and a black man came, or a black person, they got off the sidewalk so that you could walk by. And my uncle decided one time we were there, he was going to take us to a black church because they were having a revival. I must have been maybe 10 or 12, and my sister is 5 years younger than I am. And they were having this preacher there who was one of these old-fashioned kind of preachers that gets up, and he was talking about that he'd seen Jesus in Athens. And everybody, they get on the scene and scoot down and go like this and say, "Oh, I've seen Jesus! I've seen Jesus!"
now I'm going to ask Mrs. Frankel if there's anything
I mean,
else
this has
you'd
nothing
like
to
add.
do with this. I talk too much. I think I'll shut up. of my background. I think I've been a very lucky person. But my biggest thing I wanted is get out and get out. Don't stay in your little clan. The more experiences you have, it broadens your life.
Yes.
And I think I've had a pretty broad life. You think so too,
Yes,
don't
I
you?
do. I do.
Tony, any other questions?
No. When did you retire from
You
working?
have to write it down.
Okay. Get part of the pen.
We're pausing. Tony's going to ask about Mrs. Frankel's retirement from work. And Tony, would you please ask if she is doing any writing now?
Okay.
We're pausing for just a moment while we write down another question
You
for
mean
Mrs.
drawing?
Frankel.
Is she doing any drawing now?
Or writing.
I just don't think you ought to quit. Just keep on going. See, now I'm on the board of directors for Association of Late Deaf and Adults.
We're asking Mrs. Frankel when she retired from working
Yes.
into
I've
retirement.
been the editor of three newsletters.
Are you doing that now? Are you active now?
Yeah. Well,
What newsletters?
I had my own business for almost 30 years because after I went to the furniture company, they moved, they consolidated, and I was left without a job, and a lot of the people knew me from the furniture company. Did you ever know Lawrence or Myers-Dixon Furniture? Well, that's where I worked. That's what, yeah, that became Myers-Dixon on Peachtree. I worked there, and then they sold out. And I started my own advertising agency, all-girl ad agency.
Are you going to ask her to talk about the business? Her business, okay. Did you have a question for her?
Now I'm asking Mrs. Frankel about the Association of the Deaf that she mentioned her current work with.
Well, I've been hearing impaired since I was a child. And, in fact, my doctor told me after growing up that I should never have any children because it would make me totally deaf. But I became, because I was an artist and draw, it didn't make any difference whether I could hear or not. And I wore hearing aids to get along. In fact, one of my first hearing, they used to be so big, you would have a hearing aid here and have a battery down here and things strapped to your legs. And, in fact, one time I started getting weather reports on my hearing aid. But I kept wearing hearing aids until they couldn't get one as my hearing deteriorated, and I kept getting stronger ones, and then I kept getting any operation I saw. I kept getting operations, and finally I got a cochlear implant, and I had too many previous things, and I'm totally out now. But the hearing aid people told me about the support groups for the people who are hard of hearing or deaf. And I joined what was called SHH, Society of Hard of Hearing or 3 years. And then that sort of petered out, and now I'm a member of the Association of Late Deafened Adults. And that's a national organization, but most of these people in that organization do sign language. I do not sign. You cannot really sign unless you have somebody to sign with and do it on a daily basis. It's a totally different language. But I do their newsletter. That's the third newsletter I've been the editor of. And I write for them because they like to hear, for me to write about the funny things that happen to me when you're deaf. We just made a website for it. I'm on the website for Association of Late Deaf Adults. I'm going to Rochester, New York for my 4th convention for that. They're marvelous people, and I've expanded my contacts. In fact, I'm trying. It's Alda Peach, I think. ALDA Peach. www. It's just brand new. I'm not sure what it is.
This is the website name.
Yeah, they've got a website. We just got it. It's a national organization. The people in it are fantastic. I mean, wheelchairs, it makes me feel like, my God, I'll never be sorry for myself when I see these people that have never heard, or they have this NF2, and it makes, and then they get, I don't like to talk about them, but they're wonderful people.
I would just like to ask the name of your advertising company, please.
That was Harriet Frankel Advertising. I had a whole girl ad agency.
Fantastic.
I specialized in doing patient build-up. For doctors and dentists was the first one up.
Excellent. Here's Mrs. Frankel's wonderful business card.
I was a woman's liver before they had a name for it.
You're fantastic.
Okay.
Great. Well,
What is your business before you were a volunteer, or are you still working?
Not working.
thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
I love to talk.
I was a director of transportation for a campus.
Well, what I'm proud of is I was married in the Jewish temple on Peachtree. 1940. And the last few years since I've been deaf, I couldn't go to the services. And I got invited to Christian deaf ministries all the time, and we didn't have any at the Jewish. I have now succeeded in getting captioning for the high holidays in our assembly.
That is exceptional.
I talked them into it.
Exceptional.
So I can go to the services for the high holidays next week with captioning.
Very good. Is oh. I'm gonna go get another one.
We're gonna.
You got my whole history now.
Pardon me?
Now,
My husband's brother's brothers were all in the service. One was a Marine and one was
That's what I was.
one was a Marine and one was a, what is it when they're not a merchant?
Merchant Marine.
And one was a merchant Marine. But my husband had polio, so he couldn't do it. And the other one was in the Navy. They're 4 brothers. And then 3 of them were in the service.
I'd like to ask Mrs. Frankel if she's written the story of her life yet.
Everybody wants me to.
You should do it.
I've been in print a couple of times. I'd like to talk. When I talk, I don't have to hear.
Well, you are amazing. Tony, anything else at this point?
No. I was going to ask her if her advertising agency is still running, if it's still in business or whether she is.
Okay.
I think I've been very fortunate to have a very full life. I don't know anybody else my age has had as much as I've had. I've done a lot of traveling too.
Great.
Is your advertising agency still in business? No.
No. It was me.
Okay.
And when I couldn't hear anymore,
When did you retire?
it's been about 6 or 7 years ago.
Well, you are certainly amazing, Mrs. Frankel. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, tell me what's going to happen now with this.
Well,
Where does it go and how did you get involved?
we'll explain that to you. And
That's what
thank,
I need.
thank you again so much. Okay. Start.
You want me to...
Yeah. We're asking about Mrs. Frankel's grandparents.
Well, the main thing I remember is going to visit my grandparents in Chicago. Is that they came over here. They had in Russia. They had some kind of a factory or something, and of course they lost it all when they came over here. There were 7 children in that family, and basically, I just was always over there with a kid with my grandma and grandpa, and they all spoke Yiddish or Russian together, so I didn't understand what they were saying, except that my grandmother was absolutely marvelous cook, and she made strudel. And I asked her how to make strudel, and she tells me you put this much here, and you get so much here, and then you take the dough and do it like this to it. I give up. There's no way I can make strudel.
Now tell us about riding on the mule.
Well, I was going on the mule in Grand Canyon. The Elder Association had their convention in Las Vegas. And all my life I wanted to see the Grand Canyon and go down and ride a mule down there. And nobody would ever go with me. And as I said, because I have been in all these different organizations and have met people and expanded, I have a black man friend who was deaf. But he got a cochlear implant and can do it. He's with the post office. So his name is Richard. And I said, Richard, are you coming to the convention? While we're there, I want to go to Grand Canyon. And he said, I'll go with you. And my wife and I will go with you. And so they met me up there. And the thing was to go to the Grand Canyon. When you got there, we found out you had to sign a waiver. And the waiver said to be able to go down and obviously, I don't look like I'm 90 or 80. I know I don't. I mean, that's not vanity, it's just a fact. And so we get out and go out. Actually, my husband proposed to me on horseback so that I'm familiar with riding. So we get down and we go to get our mules. And I get up on that mule. My God, I think I've lost my mind to try to do this in my 80s, to do it. But I've been wanting to do it all my life, so I'm going to go ahead. Well, our guide was a woman. And so she put me right behind her, and then we start down the trail. It was just a half a day. I wasn't crazy enough to do a whole day, but we had a half a day's ride. But then you start going down there, and then it turns around, and you look at, whoa! And I'm holding on for dear life. In fact, I could hardly look to see what was going on. And then she turns around, and I knew darn well that she was saying, "Are you all right, Harriet?" "Oh, I'm fine, everything's okay." So she'd go on. And then she would stop and tell people things, and she said, "Are you all right, Harriet?" I'm fine. She never knew that I was deaf.
Wow.
She never.
That is an amazing story. We have got time, I think, for one more story. So would you please tell us about what happened after Lockheed turned you down?
Oh, well, I don't know how long it was, but it was after my son was born that I had gone to ask for the job. And then they did call me back and wanted me to come out because production illustrators were scarce as hen's teeth. So I told them, "No, thank you." Over the phone. I was so mad.
Right. Well, it was their loss.
That's all it was. I just told them I already had another job. I wouldn't come back.
Good. Well, thank you so much for all of this. Thank you.